Welcome back, everyone, to another race breakdown. I am Kevin Sully, and today we're going to be looking at the 2022 Penn Relays College Women's 4x1500 Championship of America. It was one of the most anticipated races of the meet, and it delivered. There was a lot of pre-race hype about which teams would show, who would be on anchor, and would that collegiate record come down? And the answer to all those questions was yes, yes, and yes. We got to see the best people square off on one of the biggest stages in collegiate track and field, and the end result was a collegiate record. So we're going to go through this race, highlight a few things that jumped out to me, and also just kind of relive how special of a moment this was in the history of Franklin Field. One cool thing about this race, as I mentioned, the teams that entered, you had Arkansas, NC State, and BYU. Those women's teams had won the last three NCAA cross-country championships, and we're recording this now in 2023 with the benefit of knowing that another one of those teams won it again in NC State. So we really had a meeting of all the powers currently in the NCAA women's scene. Of course, there's other teams that have contended for titles and podium finishes, but these were the three teams that we really wanted to see. Now, Arkansas and NC State really put a lot of firepower into this event. BYU, not so much. Courtney Wayment, their big star this year, didn't run the 4x1500, so they're ultimately going to finish fifth. But Arkansas and NC State, they showed up, and they showed up with their top talent. Before the race, Arkansas coach Lance Harder had mentioned, hey, we're going after the record, because the question in a lot of these distance relays is not just, do you have the runners with the PRs capable to set the record? It's, will the race unfold in a way where everybody is going for time? Because they want to win. They don't want to risk having to do unnecessary leading that's going to put them in jeopardy of securing the victory. And sometimes that means the time slows down. Of course, if you're a historian of Penn Relays, go back to that famous Oregon Villanova, Edward Cheserek, Jordy Williams 4x-mile insane race where they were jogging on the track. The time got really slow. Ches ultimately got out-kicked. This was the complete opposite. Arkansas and NC State both went for it. They both had an idea ahead of time of what they wanted to do. They both knew, based on the personal bests of the women on their teams, that they could average the 4 minutes and 17 seconds required to not just break this record, but to smash it. So right now, for Arkansas leading, we have Isabel Van Camp, and for NC State, up there is Anna Vess. And this first leg was really even. You see the other teams also still pretty much in the mix, and there's not much separation right now. So let's move this forward, if we could, a bit, Colt. We're going to scrub ahead to just the exchange for the first runners passing it on to the second runners. You see NC State on the outside there in the black. Let's see if we can scrub this ahead to maybe 4 minutes or so on that clock. And a tricky thing about the 4x1500, kind of can lose track of where you're at on the track because the starting and finishing positions are so different. So they have people out there letting them know they only have a lap to go, and you can see your teammate lining up, but it can be a bit disorienting. So let's watch this first exchange here coming up for Arkansas and NC State. As I mentioned, they separate. BYU's going to come back into the picture here with Megan Hunter. So you have those top three NCAA cross-country powers going 1, 2, 3 on the first exchange. Arkansas, of course, won the DMR as well, too, a few months prior. And they see that first pass. We had Van Camp at 4:16.8. Penn Relays results had that. Anna Vess of NC State, 4:17.4. So as I mentioned, they needed to average 4:17. So they're right on track for their first runner, and they have more good runners to come, particularly Arkansas. We'll talk about them more in a little bit. They basically had two women capable of being an anchor in Lauren Gregory and Krissy Gear. So we have two up front here, actually three up front right now, with BYU latching on. But Arkansas and NC State are going to separate. So we have Logan Jolly for the Razorbacks and Samantha Bush for the Wolfpack running here on that second leg. Now, Bush, ultimately, she ran outside of Katelyn, too. If you put these two teams together, Bush ran the third fastest time. So it was Krissy Gear, Arkansas's anchor, Tuohy, NC State's anchor, and then Samantha Bush running second. That's all going to come on the back half. So let's move it ahead to about, let's say 7 minutes or so on this clock, and you're going to see the separation that takes place from Samantha Bush and Logan Jolly, and they're going to make it clear that this is a two-team race. We can even push ahead another 30, 45 seconds. 4:17, I said, is the split that they needed, so that means you're looking for about 8:34 through 2 legs, and Bush really opening it up on this second leg. So she'd ultimately run 4:10.9, Jolly 4:13.9, so 3 seconds back, but still a really good leg. And this is when it becomes clear the record is going to happen. The record is going to happen, barring something unforeseen like it getting tactical, someone falling down, because Arkansas now has their 2 strongest runners in Gregory and Gear, and NC State has 2 really strong runners in Shaw and, of course, Katelyn Tuohy on anchor. So NC State has the lead, but Jolly did a good job, and this is going to be a theme throughout these last couple legs. Jolly did a good job keeping it close because not every leg was perfectly balanced. She kept Arkansas in range, and then you have Gregory coming up who has so much experience at this level, really good at a variety of distances. She had run 4:30 in the mile earlier this year, and she has Shaw in her sights in front of her. And Gregory, she knows, hey, I probably got to get a lead here because coming up on anchor, yes, we have a strong runner in Krissy Gear who had run 4:09, but they have Katelyn Tuohy, and we know how good Katelyn Tuohy has been. Let's flip over real quick. Let's show the all-time list just to see what these women were chasing. So you throw this up on the screen. Of course, you're going to have to ignore Arkansas and NC State because we know they went on to break the record. But this is the mark that they were chasing from Tennessee in 2009, 17:08. Chanel Price, Phoebe Wright, Rolanda Bell, and Sarah Bowman, some household names to anybody who's been a fan of track and field. So 17:08, that was the time that they were going for. As I mentioned, by leg 2, you knew it was going to happen. And leg 3 just put an exclamation mark on how fast these women were going to run. Gregory starting to close it down, starting to shrink that gap to the NC State runner. Again, when you're watching this on replay, you're trying to think, okay, wait, how many laps do they have to go? Where are the runners lining up? And it's particularly difficult because Penn Relays, there's so much going on in the infield. There's so many people there. It sometimes is hard to track everybody down and where they're at. But shout out to Shaw on this leg because she's ultimately, she runs 5 seconds slower than Gregory. But again, she keeps it close when she gets past. Let's move it ahead here, another 20, 30 seconds so we can see the pass from Gregory. She's closing, she's closing, she's closing. And Gregory could have been anchor in this leg. She obviously, in this relay, she had the credentials to do it. I think talked to Lance Harder before the race. I remember him saying to me, yeah, Krissy really wanted to be anchor, so that's why he put Krissy Gear in that position. Hey, that's a pressure-packed spot. It's not an NCAA championship, but Penn Relays is pretty darn close. When you walk in the stadium, see the fans, feel the intensity, and know that you get one shot at this every single year to get a relay in this event. And all the weight of your teammates and your school is on your shoulders. So here's the pass from Gregory, part of her 4:12 leg, and some pressure on her of, hey, I can't just win this leg. I already made up some ground, but I got to give my teammate Gear a little bit of a cushion going into this anchor leg against Katelyn Tuohy. And she starts to open it up. Again, though, credit to Shaw. She doesn't fold. She stays within range. You knew Gregory was going to come, and she did a good job keeping it close and making it so that Tuohy could strike. So the pass is going to happen in a little over 100 meters here because now we're to the anchor leg, so it's just basically a 1,500. So it's going to be that traditional 1,500 meter starting point. So Gregory's going to pass off to Krissy Gear, who I mentioned, very credentialed runner, very experienced runner, wanted to have the baton in this position, but it is tough to run from the front, especially when you have someone the caliber of Katelyn Tuohy behind you. So Tuohy's going to get the stick a few seconds back, and she's got her work cut out for her. And she's got a decision to make. Hey, I got to close this gap. How much energy do I expend, and when do I expend it? And in the same way, Gear has to make similar choices too. And it is very loud out there. coaches are screaming, but I don't know how much information they're getting in terms of where they are relative to the other runners. So there's a great shot. So you can see just how far back Tuohy was, and she's going to start to close this gap. Interesting to mention, because now we know Tuohy is this dominant collegiate runner. But if you look back, we could pause it there for a second, pull up Tuohy's profile. This was really the beginning of that massive Tuohy win streak. Scroll down there a bit. Let's see if we can get to the Penn Relays race that we're mentioning or that we're talking about here. Keep going a little bit. Yeah, right there. Right there. So you see that Penn Relays 4x1500, April 28th through April 30th. Yeah. So prior to that, you see some losses at indoors. But then after this race, look at what she goes on to do. As we scroll up, runner-up in the 5,000 to her teammate at ACCs. But then it's a lot of ones. Undefeated in cross country, wins the title. Then we go to indoors. Those second places and those third places, those are against pros. Those are not against collegians. At the Milrose Games and at Dr. Sander, continues on indoors, breaking all those collegiate records, wins the 3,000, wins the 5,000. So this really set in motion the next phase of Tuohy's career, where she is just dominant against collegiate competition. And Gear definitely gave her all she could handle in this race and ultimately came away with the win. But now of course, we're in a different era of Tuohy dominance. So let's go back to the race here. We're under 3 laps to go. You can see Tuohy little by little just sneaking back into the picture. Now she's not sneaking back into the picture. She's storming into the picture. You can tell at this point, all right, the pass is going to happen. It's just a matter of how is Gear going to respond. And it's difficult to predict because some people, when they get past, can latch right on. Some people, they can't handle the pace and the race is over instantly. But that shot right there, you can just see, you can contrast the turnover and you can just see that gap closing with every stride. You know the pass is going to happen, but we don't know what's going to happen after that. Now, if you know how good Gear is, know how experienced she is, you got to be thinking, well, she's expecting this. She knows it's going to happen. She's not just going to collapse. She is going to have that response. Let's just see what happens. By the way, at this point, it is completely a foregone conclusion that the record is going to be broken. Now we're thinking, oh, can they break 17 minutes? Well, spoiler alert, they're going to smash 17 minutes with these two on anchors running as fast as they are. So now we are coming up on a pass here. Tuohy comes up on the shoulder. Now you're thinking, all right, is she going to go on the curve or is she going to wait till the straight? So an interesting bit of strategic racing. Forget the other legs that have come before. This has just turned into a 1500 at this point, or a 500. So Tuohy makes the pass with 700 to go, and this is what we're all curious to see. Can Gear latch on? Can Tuohy create some separation? And Gear does a good job of latching right on. And at this point, you're like, okay, she must have known she was coming. She planned for it. Now, Tuohy's in the lead, and she gets to shadow her. She doesn't have the disadvantage of closing. Now, keep in mind, Tuohy wasn't just sitting on Gear's shoulder that whole time. She had to work to get back up. She had to really put a lot of effort into close. It's not like she was able to draft. So now they're passing some lapped runners, and they're going to take the bell, 15:50 or so on the clock, and they go around these lapped runners. I thought this was a key part in the race because Gear's able still to maintain contact, and her confidence has to be building with every stride. And right there, you can see an injection of pace. Gear really going to the arms. And now we're on the backstretch. She went wide on that backstretch, show of confidence there. And she's digging in and now trying to get in front before the turn. And she's able to just do it. She sneaks onto the inside. Now she grabs the rail, so she's not running extra distance. The question is, okay, now can Tuohy respond? Man, we've gone back and forth. NC State, Arkansas, so much fun. This is what the Penn Relays is all about. It was so loud in the stadium at this point, watching these two teams put everything they have into this historic race, and it was such an amazing payoff. So here's Gear down the home stretch, trying to close it out. Tuohy fighting for every inch, but it's not going to be enough. Gear and Arkansas are going to get it done. Gear split 410.7. Tuohy split a 409.8, having to come from behind. Just a crazy impressive effort for both of these women. The finishing times, 16:53 for Arkansas, NC State, 16:55. We knew they could probably break the record. Once we saw the first leg, we thought it really could happen. Then we knew it was going to happen after the second leg, but we didn't know it was going to be this fast. So this lived up to all the hype, all the previous expectations, one of people's favorite races of the 2022 Penn Relays. So much fun to be there and experience it. So looking forward to 2023 and all that's to come. Arkansas, incredible effort. See some of the replays here. And, you know, as I mentioned, moving forward, Tuohy goes on, performs well outdoors, into cross country, and then into the indoor season. And now we're at the point where she's just smashing collegiate records at basically every turn, because we were 6 weeks away after this race. We were 6 weeks away from her winning that 5,000 at the 2022 Outdoor Championships. So that'll do it for this edition of Race Breakdown. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the FloTrack YouTube page and check out the 2023 Penn Relays live on FloTrack. We'll talk to you guys next time.